Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup, the series where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they are new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, today it's finally time to start closing off on the keep up that we need to do from previously covered creators. There's so many all the time. It's been the past like 30 episodes, and in between there's been a lot of other shit. The singing challenges, which are for now done. However, you can check them out. Of course, I thought they were pretty fun personally. However, I may not be the best singer ever invented. So, yeah, I think we should just jump right into it. Okay, we're going to start with what I forgot to watch the other time that I should have watched. So, pikpilled, or Pikperson, as their channel is currently nicknamed, is the creator of Oido, which is a series that we watched a couple weeks ago. And, well, 8 days ago, they dropped a thing. I'm not 100% sure what it is. However, it is titled TENANT TUSSLE. That's what it is. It is episode 1A, and it is titled No Time Like the Present. Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect. It's kind of flown entirely under the radar for me. However, we gotta watch it. We gotta chat about it. So let's get to it. Let's watch it. TENANT TUSSLE 1A, No Time Like the Present. Good luck to it. Alright, so that is TENANT TUSSLE 1A, No Time Like the Present. I know that's going to cause a lot of plosives on the microphone, that name. But, yeah, so we have ourselves a case of DIBS. So, it's the second proper DIBS-style show that, at least I know exists. Of course, there might be another smaller one that, I haven't come across yet. So, what is the DIBS format? That gets explained very mildly here. Basically, how the DIBS formula works is you get a big team of people, and what the team of people do is very simple. They call dibs on a scene. Basically, at any order, somebody can claim to make the next scene, and then they will proceed to make the following scene with the whatever they want. There's no script, there's no direct plan. They can chat, however, there's no script to follow. You know, they just come in, make a scene, and then the next person makes the scene, so they can kind of spruce it up in their own way, right? So, this is a concept that for DIBS has ended up working pretty well. DIBS has managed to pick up a nice following, has managed to create some pretty nice characters, you know, throughout their whole system. However, the DIBS formula, for all that it is an interesting restraint, it does have some issues, right? Like, which this show ends up reciprocating quite a bit. In my opinion, the main problem with the DIBS formula is simple. There is no script. However, there is a show that needs to happen, and a story needs to be followed along, right? Because it is not entertaining if we just have, like, unrelated scene to unrelated scene to unrelated scene to unrelated scene, right? And then there's nothing that connects the dots, right? And has a plot, an overarching thing going forward, right? Which means that it ends up that, like, however, everybody's scenes, they don't want to be the front runner usually, you know? Very rarely does a person want to be like the person say, I'm going to make the change, you know, I'm going to make the things happen, right? Like, very rarely is somebody coming in with like that, right? Which means that, like, we end up having, how big is this team? This team is giant. I think it's bigger than the DIBS team. This is 4, 8, 12, 17 people, okay, are apparently on this team, which means that, like, that would be 17 possible scenes before, like, of everybody who probably wouldn't want to make a major change. You know, like, it's kind of complicated. And that also means that the pacing of these ends up being quite poor. Not gonna lie, like, it ends up being that stuff just happens slowly. I mean, like, this is episode 1A that's 15 minutes long. It's a 15-minute long 1A episode where, as far as I'm aware, nothing has actually happened in terms of like the tussle. You know, I still don't know what this is. Is this a competition show? I think the setup that's being made here is Timekeeper owns the house, and therefore you need to compete. The 40 people that are in the house, you compete, and the show setting is the house itself, because the Timekeeper held it and was like, you guys get to fight to keep it, and then you get to invite whoever it is. I thought that was what they were gonna set up, because the Timekeeper kind of, it looks like that type of algebraianistic character, right? Kind of looks like Clock from ITFT, but like it seemed like that's what we were setting up here. However, it's not, because then they don't own the house anymore, and then somebody comes in and is upset, and then like starts talking stuff. I don't really know, but as far as I'm aware, I still think that's probably what it is. That's happening. I don't know. They get a mail. They get a letter, and then the letter is what? I don't know. I don't know. What is the event that? Sorry. What is? Okay, yeah. I think the idea. My current theory about what this show would be. Okay, from what I've seen here from this episode, I think that Timekeeper is the owner of the house, even though apparently they don't own the house anymore. But I still think they own the house. There was like a one-liner. Is that they might make a competition with people in it. And then the person that gets out gets evicted, so that way the male has an eviction notice. Is that what's happening? I think. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But isn't that crazy how I don't know what this show still is, as we've had a full release that's 15 minutes long with like 16 people making a scene, and it is still not clear what the framework of the show is. You know? Like what even what the basics are. Like those are the like what the show, how the show functions is the absolute basic, but it's not. There's nothing. There's not there, you know, which is kind of the unfortunate part. Because other than that, I mean, like it's relatively solid. I also think that this show does exaggerate a little bit as well on the character front. How many characters are there? I think somebody mentioned. I think a character mentioned in passing that there are like 40 of them. Which I mean, I don't know. Is it 40? I feel like it's not quite 40. However, it's a big number anyways. I think personally, I think a DIBS-style show would probably work best with a smaller cast. Everybody kind of gets to drop in their own OCs. And like that's kind of a thing. However, at a certain point, it needs to get finalized, and I feel like it would be way better if it got finalized like early, because it becomes kind of also segregation of characters. You know, some of them are only gonna like. There's not gonna be a broad understanding of the full cast by any individual member, so they're kind of just gonna work on their characters, and then if they have less scenes to make in that episode, that means that they get less characters, and then it's like that whole shebang, right? Like, oh yeah, and then they're kind of being like, oh, these characters are super developed and these characters aren't developed at all, right? And these characters get a shit ton of focus and these don't, right? Like it's like this is kind of where the problems are currently at. That's basically what I think the main critiques of the DIBS-style remain. It ends up having episodes that are like, if you just do the system, it ends up having episodes that are very slow paced and writing that ends up being a little bit more right? It has to get countered, you know, for a DIBS-style. It needs to have kind of rules that set it into like, okay, yeah, you can do whatever you want within parameters, right? Like it's okay to set parameters, but yeah, and the characters that get the most screen time are the ones that are the most easy to understand in a way, right? Like the deals character that keeps going on, hi, I have a deal, right? That is one of the most simple characters, and therefore you'll notice that more people just use them as a character because there is a better understanding of it, you know. Like it's just more general. But yeah, there's a guy that wants to clean his room, I think. Yeah, okay. Let me try to quickly grasp what stuff's happening right now. It doesn't really matter that much. They end up okay. So there's a guy that's trying to clean his room. The post-it note. Okay, the post-it note is like the house pays the bills. Apparently, pays the bills. There's the shower head that arrives at the end. So the shower head buys the groceries, and apparently Post-it Note pays the bills, even though a couple of other scenes have said that they split the rent. So do they split the rent, or does Post-it pay the bills? I don't know. Maybe they all paid the rent, and then the bills are a different story. I think that's what's happening. Yeah, okay. I think what's going on is that Post-it Note pays the bills, like the electricity bill, the water bill, okay. And then the rent is theoretically a global payment if everybody's there, and then stuff from outside the groceries, I think the showerhead buys it. I think that's what's going on. That's roughly how the layout of the house is being delivered. Okay. You know, I gotta try to find out, because like, it's a little messy, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, house gets clean, the lollipop's pretty good, then we hire a cleaner who's like pretty good, then they have a vacuum cleaner, I guess, eat it away, like a Roomba, that's like a green Lego. We have this. What are you? It's like a blue pot. I don't know. They were like cooking, I guess. And then there's a couple of other fellas. There's a 3D orange who's there and exists. There's a guy that wants to look cool. How do you work? To prove people that you're cool, your personality is going to be out of this world. There's a clip of them just out of the world. Okay, great. Then they're also having a party though in the house, and then a couple of people are dying, which is not good. Some people like the noise. Some people don't like the noise. There's a lot of rooms. I don't know what the layout of the house is yet. I think there's like rooms upstairs, kind of like living room area, kitchen in the middle, and there's like the basement that you can't go to. I think that's what's going on. There's this blue fella with a loser hand, who I think is the one who ends up they're on a recovery fridge duty. So the recovery fridge recovers people. That's like the recovery center. And then the people die in the house, they respawn at the recovery fridge, but somebody has to open the fridge for the recovery fridge to do its function. So that means that like there needs to be somebody there. Like it doesn't seem to be an automatic function. I think there's a pink lemonade. There's a lot of other people who die. People be out here dying. The timekeeper bought the house. Maybe the timekeeper bought the house. I don't technically. Okay, all I'm saying is that you don't need to buy a house to put a giant sign in front of it that says property of the timekeeper. Technically, he could just be lying. Like, just saying. Technically, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't necessarily. Like, that is a thing that you can think about. But yeah, they go outside and it's okay. Yeah. I kind of wish that there was a little bit more of an indoors aesthetic, because like I think that having a show set entirely indoors is kind of interesting. A lot of shows are set just in grass, so having a show that's set indoors is pretty interesting. However, like it's an indoor setting that's you kind of have to imagination it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, like you have to use the power of imagination for quite a bit of it, because like it's kind of just white and gray lines, right? But yeah, if you believe, then it's pretty solid. What else is happening? A couple more people show up. A couple more people die. Wait, yeah, the recovery fridge I'm trying to check if the recovery fridge gets always opened by someone, and I think it is. Yeah, they went to the basement. There's a driller just on fire. That's just the character, which is interesting. Then we have a picture posted mom, which for some reason everybody has. And then somebody has a picture posted dad, which is a pretty fun gag. Yeah, and then they're just on fire. Yeah, look, individual gags are funny. I just like I don't know. I try to think of these shows, a show like this. I'm trying to think of it a little bit more fundamentally, right? Because it's like, okay, again, like we need the show to do well, in the sense where like I need this show to survive. And for this show to survive, at the end of the day, it needs to have a structure. The show needs to have some semblance of a structure to it. Otherwise, it'll just be 14 minutes of things that certainly happen and stuff, right? Which is like, it's like, you know, it's fine, but it could be so much more, you know? Like, you got to take the good tips from Dibs. But yeah, there's a letter. Okay, what is in this letter? Somebody else arrives that they're invited to the party. Okay, this letter says that the lease of the house is being like a timekeeper. You aren't the owner anymore. What? Oh, wait, hold on. No, wait. Hold on. Let me listen. That the lease of the house is being like a timekeeper. You aren't the owner. Okay, I don't know what that says. Look, I'm just gonna until somebody reads the note correctly, I'm just gonna presume that timekeeper is the owner. Okay, this person's I don't know who that is, but that character, the blue pot, don't trust him. Bullshit. They tape him to the wall, which the timekeeper ends up remaining until eventually somebody says time and they end up slipping out. Then the shower head arrives back with all the groceries, gets upset because of course they caused property damage. You can't actually see the property damage from outside. I mean, I guess the property of blank, you can see that, but like I don't know. You wouldn't have been able to notice except the tape on the wall. But yeah, for some reason complaints of post-it note, even though there's 40 people in the house, you want post-it note to save the day. What do you want? What are you doing? Most of them didn't even do anything except set somebody on fire, I guess. I guess they did do that. But yeah, the intro's pretty cool. I like the intro. To be honest, yeah, the mail. And then right as the intro happens, we end up having the finish with a logo that's also quite cool. So, yeah, in general, that's the show. I've said a lot of kind of negative things here in this segment. However, don't get me wrong. I do think that the majority of the characters were enjoyable, and I think the gals are pretty enjoyable. I just think that like it needs to be there needs to be that focus placed on having the show function as a show. You know, like maybe it's a non-competition show, but it's not clear. Right, it's called what? TENANT TUSSLE. Like tussle? Like isn't that like a battle? Like a messy battle? Like what is a tussle? Hold on. Do I not know what a tussle is? Tussle definition: a vigorous struggle, typically in order to obtain or achieve something. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it's like a battle. Yeah, it's a battle. So yeah, for sure. Like you'd think that there'd be some degree of battling going on. So like yeah, it's a show, but like presumably, but like, the fact that we don't know is crazy. You know, like it's yeah, that's kind of the entirety of a portion of it. And Dibs suffer from a lot of the same issues as well. Like Dibs 1 is ginormous because it spends like 15 minutes before the host shows up. You know, like that's kind of before the phone even appears, right? It's just kind of characters chatting, right? And even then, the average scene is longer, right? So it's like it's kind of a thing. Eventually, it sorts itself out, right? And currently, Dibs is like slower paced than usual, but it's very dealable with, right? But even then, Dibs has had a lot of has had a lot of rules in place to not have absolute destruction, right? Of like plot ideas and everything, right? So kind of like yeah, I think needs to focus on pacing for these types of shows to be a success, because by default, it's a struggle. But other than that, it's a solid concept. I like shows that are set indoors. I think the Timekeeper could be an interesting host. I think a lot of characters are quite fun. Overall, the animators, they all seem to do a good job of animating. And the character designs are also quite cool. But yeah, gonna need to see more. Gonna need to see some focus on it. Alright, next. Alright, next up, it's time to go back over to Crispy TV, because another episode of TUOS Horizon has released 1 week ago, which theoretically means that episode 6 should release today. However, look, by the time that I'm filming, it's not out yet, so we'll watch episode 5, and then of course at a later date, we'll think about episode 6 when that arrives. Apparently this is, I think, a non-competition episode, I've been informed, and it's also longer than every other episode by like quite a bit. It's 5:28, so, no idea what's about to happen, but let's just take ourselves a look, shall we? Alright, that is TUOS Horizon 5 Crimson Fracture, which by the way is a sick name for a title. That's actually very cool. Get that on a GD level immediately. Yeah, it is the second birthday, technically. Did this episode, it didn't release on January 1st, or it might have on a time zone, but, at least on the second for me, but either way, yeah, it is a special episode, and it is the non-competition episode, indeed, of the series. So last time that I checked up on TUOS Horizon, I was quite upset, technically, about it, because I didn't like the direction that it had, that, was kind of speed running. It pretty much sped ran the season. Did like 3 eliminations in one go. Which felt way too fast, you know, it felt like unsatisfying. So I was kind of upset about that, because we're just doing this to have less episodes. When it's like, okay, I see, and it's like, alright, we have a little bit of an explanation to why that was. We take the speedrun then, that way we can have more episodes that are focused on not that. That makes sense. I still believe that is a bit of like, I understand the reasoning. It's still unnatural. I don't think it makes a like, that episode remains an unsatisfying viewing experience regardless of what this is, right? Because you watched that before this, right? However, I still think that, yeah, I think that does a lot to explain it, rather than just, finale, right? Okay, yeah, that's fair enough, right? So we have ourselves the backstory, but before we get to the backstory, let's actually get to the present. So apparently, Camellia, I'm gonna call it Camellia. No, Camelia's a singer. Wait, wait, are you called Camellia? Hold on, give me a moment. Let me just make 100% sure, because they said their name once. Chamomile? Wait. No, you're called Camellia. Okay, you are called Camellia. Alright, whatever. Camellia is a thing that coming in, you know, teaming up with the bugs to grab the pieces of the orbs that fall from the sky to make a super powerful orb. So as we found out in the backstory, them alongside their team of researchers, which is comprised of a Top Hat, a Nickel, and or whatever currency you are, and the Top Hat, Nickel, and Pearl, alongside Camellia, and then making the laboratory crew, the scientist crew, that's discovered an orb in the middle of the mountain range, which it was very beaten down and seemed to react with some power. However, it was very beaten down, right? So then them spent a couple of months studying it and doing a pretty good job at, you know, gathering as much information as they could, until one day, eventually, the computer got destroyed on accident by one of the Top Hat, who slipped away with one of the pieces of orbs that fell down from the sky, which apparently were reported on the news, which is interesting. So presumably, maybe the news people or like the researching people are those other people, because remember there was like a tack and like a bow tie that were off doing the research. Those two really haven't been relevant for ages. But yeah, the computer with the research on it ends up getting exploded, which means that by a slip up, you know, and that means that Top Hat gets fired by Camellia because of this, and then Nickel goes like, hey, back off, and it's like, okay, you can leave too, and then Pearl's like, if they're going, I'm going, so then everybody leaves, which means that Camellia ends up being left alone to research on it, and they end up, you know, they can do stuff, they have that knowledge primarily, right, as they keep researching. However, they found other peoples that want to harness the orb's power, right, which is interesting as well, because this does imply that, like, okay, I don't know what the is orb a orb? That is now one of my primary questions, right? Like, is the host orb, is that the orb of power that these people are discovering? Because those orbs of power, they're inanimate, right? So it's like, we're using orbs to take down orb, you know, it's kind of interesting. Are we harnessing the power of orb, right? Like, does that orb has the same powers as orb? Has it have more? I don't know, right? However, I think it's a couple of, it's interesting questions, right? But yeah, they team up with the bug until right at the end of the research, when the orb is complete. Camellia ends up going, I don't need you. You're nothing. Then they're going, pew, and they get eating into the sky, and then Camellia is now going to take revenge themselves. Why? I don't know. Now, I don't know if they're going to take down Orb, but they have the power. They might just go on a rampage in general, right? It's interesting. In the meantime, Top Hat has just been chilling, being worried about it. You know, Pearl and Nickel know that Camellia is off collaborating with some bug things. I don't know, like, not everything's 100% clear, because remember, in episode 2, we had, the Nico and Pro be in like this facility to try to search for things. And then, however, there were a bunch of other people, right? Like there was like some puzzle piece fella that walked by in the background who just never showed up again. So it was like, it didn't seem like Camille was the only researcher there. It didn't seem like it was just Camille and the Buds. It did seem like there were other people involved in the operation, but we don't ever get to actually see them. And as far as they know, those two, they seem to think that Top Hat might be with the lab. Might have been like just like kidnapped. Like I don't think those fellas are aware of the show that Top Hat is in, right? So that's kind of what's happening. Okay. As far as I'm aware, in the lore, right? And now that Camille has the power, we're heading probably into the finale, either the next episode or like I believe I could realistically see a 2-part finale. However, I'd expect would it be a 2-part finale? I mean, it could be. I mean, it'll make sense, but yeah. In general, the positive things about this show, primarily, it's very good for the time span. I mean, like, it has weekly episodes. Like, we're not talking, we're getting I feel like what most people get done in a month is what this show is getting done in a week. So, like, in terms of just the literal working production, I think it's very solid. We're getting a show with plot, with lore, with interesting characters, right? That is being made on a weekly basis. I think that's really that's like quite impressive, you know. And I will absolutely commend the show for that. I still think that it maybe takes itself a bit safe, in the sense of, like, you know, not wanting to ever try to risk going too long, you know, never wanting to risk taking that extra episode, right, that could really benefit it. However, on average, I think this episode, it's got me back on board. I had a little bit fallen off board last episode. However, I'm back on board now. I've got some nice lore. It's nice lore that makes sense, right? It gave me the crumbs in the previous episodes, and then it sorted this out here, right? Like, it's doing everything quite solid. Still having the competition, which has definitely been sidelined in this episode, quite hard. Like, no, our competition has been sidelined very harshly throughout the show in general, like in the past couple of episodes. However, in general, maybe that's the one critique I have about this season in particular. The lore is pretty good. I like the lore. I like the storyline. However, it's kind of like doing what if this show had a plot, but then not giving it too much more time to work with, meaning that it kind of has to speedrun one thing or the other, and we're just ending up speedrunning the competition, right? Because it's like, some challenges ended up being double elim for some reason, and then every other challenge ended up being kind of unsatisfying. Like, what the hell was the challenge? Climb on top of the book staircase. It took 10 seconds. Right? Like, paint the world, and then they end up all failing dramatically until somebody finds a bomb that paints the entire world gray. You know, like, they're not the best challenges ever invented. I'm gonna be 100% honest out here. But yeah, other than that, I'm back on board. Good luck for the episode that probably releases today. It releases one of these days. And yeah, next thing. Alright, next up, it is time for LBS 5. Yes, LBS, the second episode on the Object Catchup was in fact on LBS. So it has been a while. It has been over, like, 4 months since I watched LBS. So I need to kind of absolutely get more acquainted with it. In the last episode, everybody was underground for some reason. I forgot why. But yeah, they were underground. There were a couple of dramas, you know, going on with the eliminated contestant, which was Diggs, and then Popsicle Girl was sad, right? Oh yeah, there's Knifey, who eventually got confiscated away by Pedally, who got eliminated but didn't ever get caught. So, and they really want Knifey to be safe. Like, there's a couple of these plotlines going on. And I think somebody else also just walked away, like Boombox or something, just walked away into the desert. Like, things that were happening for sure. But it's time for episode 5, who's half an hour long. It's a block party featuring TylerLantz and Cheesy Mayo 102. Alright then, let's go. Alright, that is LBS 5, which I watched quite a while ago now, but, so, let's discuss it. Big old half-hour special, kind of a Christmas special, but also not really. We have ourselves well, to start, actually, we have merch. Yes, I know, LBS has merch, which, is interesting. Well, it'll be very interesting to see how this performs, right? Because usually, you see merch in shows that, with full respect to this, are of significant higher view counts and of significantly higher subscriber bases. So I should be curious if this gets sales, because it could be interesting, because at the same time, because one of those things where it's like a closer, like a smaller community is, would have less potential customers. However, at the same time, despite having less potential customers, it could still potentially supply a good chunk of people if it's like it's kind of a tight knit thing. Like, yes, I'm gonna be one of the few people who knows about this, and we'll have like it's like there's some ideas, right? But yeah, so we have ourselves the current situation. So my description of what was going on, it was wrong, because I did the situation wrong. Because I've kind of half remembered what was going on, but not really. So okay, basically, Knifey is getting brought into the bush by Candy. Okay, because Candy was the one who really wanted Pedally to be safe. I mixed the two around, right? So, like, the super overprotector of Pedally. So then they keep it alive, and they're using Knife, who's the only person who knows, right, to be like, yo, how about this? You keep an eye on Pedally, and I can help you get to Spoonie, because you can't talk to Spoonie, because Knife has had the problem that they think that Spoonie is overbearing, right, as a leader, as trying to lead the personality, trying to be the director, like, you do this, you do that, right, and doing all of that situation, we end up having the whole thing. However, Knife is like, okay, I can watch over Pedally, sure. However, I can deal with Spoonie. I don't need your help to talk like my buddy, right? Okay. And then in the meantime, there's the other thing with Boomer, right? Which who we call Boombox, and then Stairs. So Stairs got lost back in episode 3 after getting told to go away. They go over deep into the forest. They end up over in the desert. Okay. So they dipped out for 2 episodes now, and the Boomer ran away from everybody because of the whole situation where it's like, after, if I'm not mistaken, what happened? I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry, this was like 4 months ago. Boomer got revived. However, the thing about Boomer is that they speak in piano to everybody because they're hiding their real voice. So then what happened is Stairs last second turned the dial, so that way when Boomer recovered, their real voice seeped out, and everybody was like, oh, you can do that, right? Then they got super embarrassed, got super mad, and then left, alright, and then ran away. So that's kind of where the big issue are between those two. However, it ends up having the two end up, reconciling, kind of having the reconciliation, and then they're going back together as Boomer eventually turns off their voice and goes back into the zone. And then we end up having ourselves of a character getting brought up for H2O Go, the hit series, with the elimination. One of the things that I have that I am going to say, I think is quite cool, about how I think that, like, the LBS animation is starting to improve, right? The thing that's starting to improve is that one of the big benefactors of it, I think, is Dave. I think, like, Dave's facial expressions were relatively generic, or like generically sorted in the first batch of episodes. They were kind of super basic. But here we're allowing Dave to be a lot more expressive, and allows for Dave's faces to just have a lot more a charm to them that kind of make Dave just look like a little bit more of an interesting character in the way that they just act, right? Which is interesting. It's cool. It's one of the big benefactors of just the general animation bump, of course, because like a few episodes ago, like I remember, like they had some low quality shots, some low quality backgrounds, and that stuff is really starting to get cleaned up. There's still a couple of blips, absolutely. However, like we're starting to cut off the rough edges, right, and get a cool show going. Okay, so Dave gets so there's half a second that might be one of the most important half seconds for the future. as Dave is talking, a memory full pop-up appears with Dave that says the memory's full, so you can reset, send data back to factory or whatever, or dismiss, which is interesting. Dave doesn't want to deal with that and dismisses the fact that their memory is full. However, they do seem to act mildly awkward about a couple of things later on in the episode. They always do that. However, like they're acting, I feel like they act awkward on purpose here. So that is one of the details I've got to keep in mind. I don't know exactly how it would impact if Dave's memory were to be full. Like, if it's like, like, does the memory, like, is it that the memory has to be wiped out all at once? Like it's like the shovel, you know, bring it all together, give it a once. So that means that, like, Dave couldn't delete unnecessary stuff. They would have to delete the entire memory, which means that they would need to be normal, like, fully based, non-LBS mode. Is that what's going on? Maybe? I don't really know. Anyway, it's time for the elimination. Okay, so this is the drama. I forgot about this drama completely, bro. So the drama of this team is that basically what happened was that what happened? I'm really trying to remember. Okay, Toy Box. Okay, Picky ended up forming an idea with Toy Box that was like, in the last challenge, if we just don't do anything and stall out Spatula, we will lose the challenge. And since Spatula has been getting a lot of votes for being useless, if we try to just directly amplify Spatula's useless, they'll get eliminated, okay? So that is the idea. However, Toy Box does not want to lose the challenge. So at a certain point, they bail. Right? They bail from it. They allow Popsicle to directly use up Spatula and get themselves, and they nearly win. They still lose. However, they do that. They might think, okay, Piggy's getting out. Well, no, because Popsicle was super rude the entire time. Popsicle, in the last episode, due to Dixie's elimination, where it was like best friend, right? Ended up being super upset and ended up lashing out at so many people, which in general, yeah, this ends up just kind of being a little bit of a more negative situation there towards it. But yeah, Popsicle ends up getting eliminated. They get super mad because they're about to get dehydrated, of course, after they have a certified crash out because of the viewers, you know. Voting out the main characters, and they end up, the viewers get directly called out, and they end up somewhere. We don't exactly know where they end up. However, they end up at a place with a shit ton of doors, hallways, everything. There's a million rooms, and nothing's making sense over there, right? We eventually get to see that, like, there's at least one. There's basically Popsicle's just been running around there trying to see if they can find Dixie. You can just find anybody that's being dehydrated, right? However, they can't. They seem to be completely alone, or at least if they're completely alone, it's really hard to find somebody because it's a hallway, but it's an infinite length hallway, right? Like, it's not the exit isn't infinite. However, it has a very similar vibe going on aesthetically. This place from the exit in BFB, right? But like, it feels like an eternal fate. It keeps going. It's gigantic, right? So that's what's been going on, all right? Which is it's interesting within them. I'm surprised that we got to see as much of it in this episode as we did, because usually like, this type of stuff gets like teased pretty slow. Like, it's like it runs itself pretty slow. It's like, oh, this is the cliffhanger, but no, we get to see it, and then we get to see Popsicle actually running around in it for a little bit. I mean, we don't, of course, get to see everything, so presumably there's still gonna be more episodes where that stuff happens. However, like, I mean, it should be. It'd be weird if it didn't. But, like, yeah, other stuff's coming in. Candy's asset. Okay, I swear Candy's asset improved. Candy's asset was, like, way more goofy before. It's, like, it's, like, very professional. Whoever animated the scene at, like, 7 minutes, like, they might be the best animator out of them. No. My sincerest apologies. But, yeah, eventually, yeah, we end up having Stairs join the team, yeah, because we have a team swap. Yeah, that's true. because the team saw that's going on is that, yeah, that one team only had 2 people left, which was Stairs and whoever else. So they end up going over to their new team, who's of course a fucking disaster, right? It's a global disaster, especially Super said like, what did I do to you? And it's like, oh yeah, you didn't do much. That's the thing. It's, oh, you were cause for us losing, and it's like, okay, maybe kind of, but like, it's just, you don't really gotta be mean about it. You know, it can be those plans that's like, I think having multiple people pull off a plan is kind of difficult, you know, like you gotta stall out multiple people. I mean, like, it's, yeah, no, that plan was complicated. And then they're having the debate with Toy Box, they're like, it's trying to form a plan, being so easy if you just listen. Yeah, I mean, they still lost, and yes, true, they did lose, and Spatula was not eliminated, not even close. Of course, would Spatula have been eliminated if the plan was 100% successful? Maybe. No, I don't think so, because like I think Popsicle would get eliminated either way, realistically speaking. Because if they didn't, then like Spatula would have kind of been a little annoying, because, you know, they didn't do anything. However, Popsicle would have still, of course, stood out as the mean one. So I still think that, yeah, that Popsicle gets out. So that's kind of the main incorrect line of thinking that's getting played here. But yeah, the teams that's going on. And Boomerangs are going in. Okay, so what are the new teams? So they're what are you called? The Object Trio, yes, because we're all object. I know, great. Even though there's 4 people. Thank you, Spoonie, for knowing how to count. You're great at this. So yeah, there's 2 characters that are. I mean, Boomer is like verbal in the sense that they speak, but like, you know, they don't speak in a regular fashion. And then there's Knifey and Spoonie, who of course are the duo. And then the other team ends up being called Not Friends, because of course Spatula does not want them to be friends, right? So yeah, it ends up being a little bit of a complicated challenge. Find puzzle pieces. Simple. Around the area, there will be puzzle pieces hidden in various locations, and then therefore, if you if you get enough of them, then your team will be safe. So yeah, team to be safe ends up winning. This challenge is okay. It's okay. I think that it's performed pretty well in the context of the episode, because in the context of the episode we have a lot of stuff going on in terms of like outer challenge, right? Like this is the type of challenge that you can only really pull off if you're not doing the challenge, okay? Because again, challenges that are finding a thing or finding various things are bad object show challenges, because there's no way to, like, it's not that interesting to just watch a character look in a place and then is it there or it isn't there? We don't know. It's entirely based on luck, on RNG, on what the writer was feeling, right? Which means that, like, it's not great challenges. So usually these are the only types of challenges if you want to make it that, like, oh, people are going to have a conversation while walking, right? And this episode does have a good chunk of that. So it's like, oh, fair enough. It's a bit, it's a lame challenge for sure. But hey, it goes how it goes. Dave says go. You see, starts glitching out a little bit. I don't know, Dave. You're kind of glitching out. I feel like I might need to delete this to free up some storage. The digital assist via excitement. The intro has a very mild rework where, like, the characters' names appear the same way. However, the logo at the end gets formed in a different way with all the characters together, which is fun. A mild improvement of it. So yeah. Stairs ends up getting the briefing on the plan after being like, yo, Splash is making a lose challenges, which, okay, fair enough. But yeah, it's kind of mean. And then Stairs is just like, alright, I guess I gotta do this shit myself. And then meanwhile, the other team at the Department Situation, Spoonie was starting to lead the pack, you know, starting to form a plan. Then Knifey, after a bit of a realistically way too long moment of reflection, I'm not gonna lie, ends up lashing out, saying, and I quote, Spoonie, I sort of tried to be nice about this, but I'm fed up. Please let other people have a turn of leading, because nothing you are doing is helping us in any way. That is the crash out, and then Spoonie proceeds to dip. That is interesting. Is it justified? Maybe. Okay, so it's unfortunate timing for it to say nothing you're doing is helping us when, like, Spoonie was saying in objective terms why, literally at that time, they think that it's fair. Because, like, okay, yes, to be fair, Spoonie has not lost challenges. They managed to win the challenges with it's kind of one of those wrong method to finding the correct solution, you know? Like, in episode 3, you end up kind of clutching up, but, like, that was the main episode that caused the problem, right? Because, like, they over there in the fourth being, like, way too dictatorial, making people do things that they didn't necessarily want to do, right? And that team ended up being a mess. It was a mess that was held together by hopes and dreams and managed to somehow survive, right? However, it wasn't a great performance. And it had people leaving, and it was just not good, right? However, it still functioned. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where it's like, personally, I think that it is realistic to... There's... The correct answer is a compromise. You know? Like, the correct answer is like, hello, you should you should put options on the table, and then we can pick as a unit, right? It's like, that's kind of the thing. So that way, we are not just having no leader freestyle. However, we're still having the leader input the options that we might be doing, right? However, like, have a variety of potential ideas. That way, still as a unit, we can come to a decision because it's more like democratic, right? There's more proper way to go about it, right? So that way, it's not extreme of like, you must do what I'm saying, but it's not like extreme like, oh, nobody has any idea what's going on, right? Like, the correct answer is somewhere here in the middle, you know, by a significant margin. Because at the end of the day, we end up having that there's this crash out, Spoonie proceeds to go over and not do anything, and Knifer proceeds to sit there and not do anything, right? Like, it ends up just kind of being like, okay, well, like, so much for the challenge, right? Is that, like, it's not great. They end up dipping over, Boomer and Pedally go over, just searching in the meantime that the others are going crazy. They'll pop over together. Is searching together a good idea? Is it? Okay, you know what? I have never really thought about it. I feel like it would be... okay, in the objective sense of how much distance covered, it's a better idea for people to split up, I think, in a fighting challenge. Absolutely. Right, just go many different places. However, in the sense of, like, covering ground, okay, first of all, if you're going in dangerous lands, which there's, I don't think there really are, however, you know, you never know, then yes, you can have multiple people. And then, of course, if you want to cover all the terrain, like, basically make sure you're not missing anything, having multiple people there is very useful, right? So I think you can go with multiple people. It's not, like, objectively wrong. However, yeah, that makes sense. The other fellas end up splitting up, except Spatula ends up deciding to go with Picky, and starts singing a song, and they end up singing the song. What was this called? Wonder or whatever. Sorry. So yeah, we have a musical number, and alright, music, let's go. Okay, before I actually talk about the music, I'm going to talk about the one main critique that I have in the animation here. Is that the animation is improving. There's one thing that unfortunately has not improved one bit. I must admit, there's one thing that's currently a ginormous problem. Walking. I'm going to be fully 100% honest. The walking animations, they are kind of bad. Like, the background moves erratically, you know, it doesn't have any semblance of moving correctly. A lot of the time, it's the same image being just, like, shaken back and forth on the screen. The legs will always still move at a different BPM. Like, there's not there's not any recollection of the background moving properly to anything, right? Like, a lot of the time, the background doesn't even move, and it's just the legs floating around, you know? That is the one thing, because the animation has improved in a lot of areas, a lot of areas, you know, it's become much higher quality, the characters' expression, they're becoming more expressive, they're becoming more consistent, like, everything, like, stuff is overall improving. It's just, I think that has remained rather behind, still. So it's absolutely just the thing I would try. If it's like, it's not a deal breaker. However, in one of those situations where it's like, okay, let's sort this shit out, then I think that it's like, it'd be better to go, yo, if I'm gonna improve on one thing, it should be that. In my opinion, that's absolutely the one thing that separates like this show from just being fully clean in terms of animation, because they're so like, that's very noticeable if you pay attention to it. But yeah, they end up singing a song. The song is not amazing. No, it's fine. I mean, like, it's okay. It's very repetitive, I must admit. It's one of those it's one of those tracks where it's like, it's very repetitive. You end up just having a different person sing the same tune, to different degrees, like to of their own situation, which is a thing that certain songs do. However, yeah, it's not like, the one thing that I think that song really missing is like variety. Like, you'll notice that a lot of the big, like, of course, I'm sorry, we're talking about a cover here of like an old song, so like, there's not much you can do about it. However, you'll notice that a lot of the thing that the best Objects songs ends up doing is having variation. They end up having consistent, they're very musical in the sense that, like, they're here to benefit a story, right? Which means that a lot of the time they end up being sort of having a progression, right? There's not two parts that are exactly the same usually in the best type of Objects songs, right? Which yes, it's a little unfortunate. But hey, it goes how it goes. What else happens after the song? The song, it's not actually song. It's like 4 minutes. it's like tremendous. Those end up finding Pedally and Boomer end up finding the first piece. And then they end up dipping away. And doing their whole shenanigans. And then Stairs ends up having a talk with Toy Boss, being like, look, I made mistakes before. Now push people away. Trying to pretty much be like, yo, I need to, and I want you to not avoid your problems, because I've been seeing you as you seem to be avoiding the problem because you betray people or whatever. Like, you gotta sort it out, So it's like, okay, I see. There's some hell going on. I think Stairs is doing absolutely the correct decision, because they're the one party that is both third party enough to not be an original piece of the conversation, but also like still important enough where it's like, okay, we need you for the team. So it's like it's kind of one of those, to sort out the team you have to sort out the personal issue. It's kind of like Gordon Ramsay at restaurant. It's doing all the correct beats. That's all you got to do, both in all selections. Knifey was gonna go over there to Spoonie. Spoonie looks at them so bad and they're dipping away and running away. I don't know what they end up doing. They end up messing around with a gun. Then we have the big mistake in terms of the challenge. The big challenge mistake that ends up being made is we Spatula gets thrown at the ball, and to catch it, they end up having Spatula hold it within his mouth because they don't have arms, right? Okay, because it was on top of a tree. However, the teleportation means that the ball is teleported in the thing while Spatula is still holding on to it, which means that they did not end up putting the ball in there because Spatula is there, right? Which means that there's a corpse and everything. There's a big problem. It's just problems everywhere, right? And then eventually they get disqualified at the end of it because you can't have a corpse here, and if you can't have a corpse here, that means that we have to make it disappear, which means that the ball, that the shape has to also leave, because they're two attached entities, right? So that team is losing because of that, which is kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, it was not a great performance. Boomer ended up getting helped up by Pedally. For some reason, blushed the entire time. But yeah, it's not. I like how Ficky's like, yo, you're literally stuck in the fig, and somehow doesn't actually bother. Picky ends up accidentally trying to revive somebody and ends up finding a puzzle piece on accident, which is is interesting. That's like the second revive, I think, which is like what a placement if you think about it. That means that like we were banking on the fact that exactly 2 people were gonna need to be revived for a piece to appear. Because otherwise they wouldn't have. Like, nobody would have found it. So somebody finds it by just being a peer coach out the gag with their recovery center. I wish they stopped doing that. But, okay. That's interesting. We end up having a couple of smart moves like Boomer, using sound waves to drop the balloon. And then are getting a setting penalty to do it because somebody can be safe. The best individual performer can be safe anyways. Right? Which I think is the type of situation that, like, improves on... freaking ongoing individually, right? That's like usually a better system. However, hey, one of those things. Knifey is not awkward to penalty at all. Nope, no awkwardness at all. And then yeah, roughly the episode ends. Like it's about to end pretty much. I've pretty much talked about everything except the last part, which is that Kit's house has apparently been rebuilt. I know, right? Crazy. This is where the cameos come in. TylerLantz and Cheesy Mayo end up performing the 2 characters, I believe, the construction hat alongside the... What even are you? Like a car door? I don't... But yeah, those end up being the little cameo. They say like about 1 line and a half. Very solid cameos to get. I'm not gonna lie. To be fair, that's a good cameo. For a show with under 1,000 views for episode, like, hey, TylerLantz, Cheesy Mayo, those are big guns. I'm not gonna lie. So that's it was some solid collabs for sure. But hey, it's the power of asking. We end up having they're then be up for elimination. So hold on, who's safe? Yeah, penalty. Yeah, wait, no, hold on. Yeah, that team's safe. So then the other team is up for elim. But is one of them not safe? Wait a minute. So those 4 are safe. And then the person who found the most, which is Stairs. Okay, yeah, it ended up being... Okay, yeah. So, yeah, Piggy, Spatula, and Toy Box are up for Elim. The trio of people who fucked up. I mean, Spatula is, like, justifiably upset. And then gets happy. Okay, those 2 end up kind of roughly... re-amending because Spatula kind of it doesn't hold too many hard feelings, right? And then Toy Box is on the road to because Piggy's not that mad to Spatula because it's not Spatula's fault that they didn't get eliminated, right? So like I get that. Okay, that's fair. So yeah, those 2 end up being reconciled and having kind of a happy episode, and Toy Box on the way. I still would probably eliminate Piggy because of the strategy was kind of dumb, right? Even though it was the last episode, it still, I think, goes into here. Like out of these 3, I don't think any of them did anything that bad, but I think Piggy probably should dip, right? Like, that just makes the most sense. But yeah, then we have what's the post-credit scene? The post-credit scene is Toy Box going over, and then eventually Popsicle ends up pretty much like giving up on searching and just decides to sit there and wallow for the meantime. And I guess we'll find out at a future date what happens with that. And that is LBS 5. Solid episode, man. Solid episode. Overall, I think that like as far as improvement goes from the first 3 episodes, I think absolutely, it's been there. They're improving. We're getting more plot. We're getting more consistent. We're doing things right. It's making sense. I think it's making sense. Like I'm not like I understand. Like I see what's going on. There's nothing that I currently think is off. Like I mean, like there's a couple of things that I think is dumb, in the sense of like. Why is Candy so unbelievably over-obsessed with keeping Petaley safe when we're in a universe where we have recovery centers? I don't know. I have literally no idea. However, it's one of those things where it's like, I think that's dumb in sense of I think that like that's a dumb character decision. I don't like writing that is not dumb. That's just how Candy is. Why Candy is like that, I don't know. Like that's like the mentality, I don't know. But like in terms of like an objective standpoint of like out of show, I think that the writing has been perfectly fine. Especially for this episode, like I've understood everything. It managed to get me to mostly remember, even though it's been 4 months since I watched the first 4 episodes of LBS. So it does a good job on that aspect. Voice line solid. Of course, it gets helped by the fact the majority of characters voice had one person, so it's been pretty consistent. Animation. Gotta improve wall cycles, absolutely. Gotta try to get some stuff in. There's going to be multiple animators, which means that, of course, not everybody's going to be on the same page. However, I think that at least on like your end, I would absolutely say, try to pick up a thing or two about making walking look good. Because it's like the one animation mistake that you'll notice, because it's like it becomes more noticeable because the rest of it has been cleaned up, right? Like what's around it gets cleaned up, so that becomes the one thing that doesn't get cleaned up, and it's kind of weird, right? Like that's kind of the thing about it. But other than that, it's pretty solid. The animation, they are quite different styles. Some of them are very good. Some of them are like they're some like overall. I wouldn't say the animator does a bad job. Absolutely, I think they were all pretty solid. They have certainly some differences in style from each other, but it's not too bad. Most object shows do that. They have like that little style because like, what are we gonna do? Force people drawing one style? They're gonna get like one animator, right? So it's like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, stuff's looking good. Stuff is on the up, I would say, for sure. A half-hour big ol' episode. Wasn't a bad watch at all. The only time I was bored, I'm not gonna lie, was in the song. After like 2 minutes of the song, I was like, okay, I understand. But like other than that, it was all good. Next thing. Alright, next up, so the second episode of F.U.C. or F.C.U. or I don't... it keeps changing. Which was, if I'm not mistaken, the show in Indonesian. That was created by International Purple Phones. It had its second episode release like nearly the day that I uploaded the original video on it. After only 3 days after episode 1. I thought episode 1's cool. It had a unique art style. With a bunch of rough edges, but like it overall looked pretty cool, and the challenge was okay as well. I think the main problem was that to me was that it was made in a kind of broken English. But yeah, it's time for episode 2, which is a collab with I'm Animation, the creator of the other Malaysian novel show that we have been taking a look at. Oh, let's see it. Alright, that is the F.C.U. or F.U.C. or what, some combination of the letters F, C, and U, episode 2. It's not an episode 2, by the way, like, this, like, okay, here's the deal. You can do specials that are, okay, like, you can do that, However, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you want to make a special, you can just make a special. It doesn't need to be numbered like an episode. Like, because at the end of the day, is watching this going to be mandatory to watch the rest of the series? Probably not, Like the Teen Cats never, like, it's not, like, I don't think it theoretically should matter, Like, but, hey, maybe it will, okay? So we end up having Gold Medal, who apparently wants to visit another object show, and we end up hitting up the other fella, not I don't, like, what are you called? You're called like Blobhead? No. What were you called? Whatever. You head something. The fella from the other show. And then they end up agreeing to go over, and the contestants are, they're hanging out. They're meeting up. They're hanging out. They're having a good time and everything. And then a couple of hours later, we end up having a couple of contestants. We end up having flip phone message the other fella, being like, "Yo, where you at?" Right? I will say, it's very funny to see these messages get sent. Hey, where are you? The contestants already having fun. Hey, you there? Hello? It's funny because, like, we didn't make any effort to try to change the time that these messages were sent. So we just keep sending them back to back to back to back. Like, okay, yes, I promise they're sent. We'll see them probably, right? Like, it's not. We're not got 0-second response times out here. But yeah, they get sad, and eventually they end up looking over and seeing the guy fucking dead on the floor, and it's like, oh my god, I need to save him right now. But then they look back after Gold Medal talks to them, and they're gone. So were we hallucinating? Was somebody actually there? I don't know. It does seem like we might be hallucinating. Gold Medal out here being a MVP, you know. A gold medal is the call. Okay. I'm sensing a little bit of bias here in this show. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be 100% honest. Okay? You're telling me that gold medal wins the challenge, is a team leader, is the person that has to visit another object show, is the person that's having fun, and is the person that consoles the fucking host. Oh my god, gold medal. I know you're called gold medal, but you don't need to be first place in every. What are you? You're just the one. The one. Okay, good stuff, gold medal. But yeah, that is it. What is the end of Collab of the watch day video? Yes. Overall, yeah, I do gotta admit that like it's one of those situations where I still believe with F.U.C.U, D.U or whatever, is that like this show, in my opinion, still would benefit from just being in its native language. Absolutely. Because it's in English. However, it's in a broken English. So if you don't know English, you're not really going to be into it because you don't know any of the words. However, you do know English, you're not really going to be into it because it's not good English. Like, you can clearly tell that it's made by someone who's still learning, you know, who still has stuff to improve, right? Which is fine. It's just that, like, you know, if you want to try to maximize your show's skill now, I still absolutely believe that, you know, I think that it should be in its native language. It's probably difficult to switch now. However, I think that it would be, if I was the one, of course, I'm not the one making the show. However, I think that it would be a good creative decision. Okay? That's just what I believe. All right? But yeah. That's all I think for F.C.U. It'll be interesting to see if this special has a sequel, you know, where I actually find out what the hell is going on with the guy, or if not. But I don't know. I'll have to see. For now, next thing. Alright, next up we shall talk about Free Food. So Free Food released about 3 weeks ago to a relatively solid reception on its own channel, Free Food Original. Which overall has been an object show that I thought was very promising. If I remember correctly, yeah, it was hosted by this bottle, and we ended up having all of our contestants, you know, form teams and everything as we were about to start the chant. The Sealy Goobers, Team and then Team Girl Alliance, and everything. And overall, it was pretty solid. The main critique I had was that it was inconsistent. Well, let's head over into episode 1B, which released in January, as promised. Indeed it did. Titled Split in Half. Alright, that is episode 1B of the Free Food Show. So, we have ourselves a challenge. So, the challenge is tag, alright, which is a very complicated challenge to do because it is a 100% action-based challenge, right? It is purely of running, grabbing, throwing, doing much, right? Does this show do a good job at the tag challenge? Debatable. It's a little confusing. I think that yet again, it's the main issue with this show is absolutely, I think that it is inconsistent to the point where it hurts the show. You know, like a light amount of animation consistency is fine, right? And everything, but like in this case, the way that the different like I don't know quality, but kind of just vibe that the animators give off from scene to scene is way too large. A scene is only shown in storyboards. A scene is only shown in audio. Why? I don't know. Like, it's there for a reason. It's kind of weird. I mean, my presumption that an animator didn't do their scenes in time. that we were just like, yo, how do we make this funny? Let's have it show off on the screen. But it's weird because like it's also kind of lame, especially if you consider that the scene that gets turned into only text is the one with the recommended characters. So we just get to hear the recommended characters if they were going off on the screen, but they're not, because the recommended characters don't get to be seen in this episode, if presuming that they are there, right? Because that the episode is made with them to be there, right? Because they're just off over there. So that's like, okay, hold on, but we're just not doing the show. Like, it's not funny, you know? Like, unless there's a direct reason for it to do what it's doing. It's not funny for it to just randomly cut itself out. Like, it's just lazy, you know? It's just, oh, we didn't have enough work. Like, we didn't do the work. Like, hold on, you're making a show. Do the work, bro. Like, nah, like, I'm sorry. You gotta do it. Okay? You can't be out here sitting there being like, I'm gonna get somebody to storyboard this part, only have nobody fucking animate it, and just include the storyboard on there, and me to go like, yes, okay, you can do that. No, you can't do that. What is that? Like, that's lame. I'm sorry, but that is lame. Like, it's not good. You can't do that. But either way, yes, the challenge itself is okay. It really needed an indicator of who's in and who's out, because I had no idea. The only time I noticed, like, it's, you can be like, oh, you should have followed along better. Yes, but like, if a character only gets mentioned to have been tagged because the off-screen narrator, and then later like, oh, I didn't remember the one line. I said, bro, okay, you know, like, there needs to be like a screen, you know, about who's still in. There needs to be some sort of graphic, some sort of UI element, right? So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, but yeah. So what else we doing? Let's see. We have Dorch and everything. They can end up heading over to the Kit Kat, whose job is to chill. Okay, then we end up having the conversation with the skateboard and the tote bag. Yeah, there's absolutely no way this conversation would happen. I'm sorry, the skateboard rolls away. It's like they can't have a conversation if the skateboard ends up going like 1 kilometer away, like 100 meters. But like either way, yeah, they end up going over. I do like the idea that I do like the skateboard actually being able to like lay down and roll like a skateboard. You know, them actually doing that. I think that's fun. They're having a little bit of the backstory of them getting their own, like them in the past, you know, getting their knocking on doors and stuff. See, even this scene, it's like, I'm sorry, like, we're acting as if this is a house. No, that's not a house. That's just gray gradient with no walls, floors, ceilings, or anything. And and the door is pitch green. Ah, yes, exactly. And then the bed, in the meantime, no, the bed's very different. It's on a plain white room with nothing in it, and the vote was just levitating off in the whiteboard. Like, there's a degree of, like, we didn't, like, there's a degree of just this show not doing things, you know, of it just like trying to go like, okay, we don't need this, you know, we don't need to do that, it's okay, like, you know, I'm sorry, you kind of need to do it, like, this what you signed up for. You know, if you're writing a scene where somebody's in their own bedroom, you need to make their own bedroom. It's a good opportunity as well, because you get to put it, like, imagine, like, it's a great opportunity. Think about it. You get to see their bedroom. That is so much characterization that you can do, you know. And it's like, okay, I understand it'll take longer to make the episode. Yes, it will take longer to make the episode. I absolutely agree. But it's like, okay, that's fine. You can do that. It could take longer. That's no problem with me. No problema, amigo. Like, it's fine. You know, it's that type of thing where it's like, oh, they ain't gonna do the thing. It's like, bro. Yeah, that's just the one thing about the show, because I feel like it has the vision a lot, but it just skips out on so many details. Like both, you know, even having a consistent set of backgrounds. The background just feels like they're getting claimed by each different person. Someone's like, oh, here's the BFDIA background, and here's a background drawn in Sharpie. You know, like, it just kind of they're all different. We need to have standardized assets, standardized background. We need to have standardized various things, right? We just need to standardize more shit. We need to actually put in the work to make sure that stuff's solid, right? Because otherwise it's gonna be complicated, But yeah, tagging ends up happening. So it kind of ends up being saved by doing the mint thing, which it's cool. Could have been a cool scene if only I could fucking see it. If only I could see the scene, I'm sure it'd be great. But unfortunately, I'm not quite capable of seeing it. But yeah, the F.U.C end up running away over to the. Yeah, Skateboard's running away from the other three. The Torch is getting over. Then we end up having a hit. The Yakandra. Wait, hold on. How is the picnic bag getting thrown at the green shell and at Koopa shell and the me and the Yakandra shell? No idea. That scene doesn't feel like it's animated correctly, but I might just be bad at understanding it. And in the final chase, what ends up happening? We end up having an absolutely epic moment. Green Shell decides it's time to turn into blue Dabba D mode. Turns into a flying blue shell. And of course, the blue shell is a goat at catching people in first, so they end up catching it, and Skateboard is out. So nobody knew you could do that, but then you know what? Fair enough. Yeah, sure. That's cool. That's cool character, right? We're adding cool details to these characters, right? I also think that is one of the things that was a little bit of a negative about this challenge. It's not amazing for characterization because you're just kind of running, right? Like you could see how different teams form tactics, and that's pretty interesting. However, it's not the best challenge when it comes to stuff like that. To get to know the cast, and here we need to get to know the cast. But hey, we got to know Koopa Shell. There's a reason why it's called Koopa Shell, not Green Shell. There's the reason, right? Because it's a variating. You can turn green and blue. You can probably turn red as well, which is interesting. I guess we're gonna have to see if that ever becomes a situation. Maybe that makes them stronger, right? Because a red shell is targeted. I don't know. Maybe it's anger. Well, we don't really know. But this team, what teams are for elimination? Torch's teams are for elimination. Yeah, with Skateboard. Because of the Kit Kat candy bar thing. Then there is the Skateboard, the Torch, the Burger, and the Chair. These are good voting. These are good voting icons. Chair should absolutely get eliminated, though. Obviously, they're a gag character that's only purpose is to not have any types of speaking, and everybody still just considers them a person, anyways, right? I mean, no, even the characters in the show are just grab Chair because they're not alive, right? So yeah, Chair's absolutely has to go. It's time to go. And yeah, the other fellas have just been floating over in the middle of the sky. Is this even the sky? Yes, it is. Okay, just about. It's a 4% opacity. And then you get to see all of the people. And then that's the episode. But yeah, overall, I think that this show's got solid potential. I think that this show absolutely has the potential to do good things. As you can see, people found interest in it. For sure. However, it's not putting in. It's not putting in the work. It's not putting in the work. It is accepting less than it should. Gonna be fully honest. It is looking at average. It is looking at unfinished product. It is looking at average product, and it is going, this is good enough. It is looking at an episode where 2 scenes are entirely non-animated, various other scenes are animated with no background, and there's wildly fluctuating levels of quality and mouth movements and everything, and it is saying this is good enough. It shouldn't be, okay? It really shouldn't be, especially for a show that's we've got our own channel, right? We got some proper. The intro doesn't even play. I guess it's 1B, but that's fair enough. But it's. I think that this show, absolutely, you should just aim for a higher standard. Just aim for a higher standard. Push yourself to a higher standard, because there's people here that are interested in watching this show. There's the audience exists, right? Which means that you can be sure that it'll be worth it. You know, it's one of those things, right? We're like making a show. We're like, oh, man, we don't know if people are gonna care. But like in this case, we kind of know that people like an amount of people will, right? Like 4,000 views, not easy to get. So I think people will care. So I absolutely encourage. Shoot for the stars. All right. Okay. Well, maybe. Okay, stars might be too far. Shoot for the moon. You know, shoot for the next step in the quality ladder. I don't know what whatever. I'm next thing. Alright, next up is DingDong. So DingDong is a show created by PeaceMations, alright? So PeaceMations is a creator that we've previously covered one time for about 2 minutes, because they covered the Novemberly Object Show, which is a thing that they made as a joke. And we gave a quick discussion about that. It is obviously not the primary object show. The primary object show is a show called DingDong, alright? Now, DingDong, if I'm not mistaken, is a show that's now been rebooted. It had a bunch of old episodes, but they don't exist anymore, as far as I'm aware. So this is episode 1, I believe, the reboot. It's already got 1.5k views, so people seem intrigued for sure. 6 minutes long. It's titled Keep Climbing, Idiot. Let's watch it. Okay, so that is episode 1 of DingDong. So this show is kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. So, the entire time I was trying to figure out what the hell I'm looking at. Because it's like, this show, like, treats itself kind of seriously on a technical level, right? In the sense of, like, the animation is pretty well done. You know, it's pretty serious animated. They got backgrounds that you know, they're smart, right? They're equally styled. They change depending on where we're looking, right? The character, they all move and are lip sync pretty well, right? They move pretty solid. Like, the animationally speaking, the show's solid, right? Conceptually speaking, the show's solid, but it just kind of, it's like this writing is really weird, because like it feels like it's like 4 layers of irony, to where I can't tell if it's ironic anymore. You know, like I can't, like, it feel like in a certain, like, it feels satire in a way, but it's like it's not, you know. But it's like it does the classic thing of like object should be like, oh hi, I'm bored, and then a thing appears, and then you see another person like, hey, door, you know, like it does that thing. And then it does the thing with the algebraian, right? And all that stuff. The contestants themselves, they're not the most creative set of contestants ever invented. I will be 100% honest here. I like Mustard and Catchup. Mustard and Catchup are a very interesting duo. It's debatable whether they'd be a duo, because I understand the idea, but like, you don't put Catchup and Mustard. You usually, right? Like, usually those go like kind of like separate directions, right? Like, if you ever like Catchup or you like Mustard, however, them together is an interesting pairing for sure. But other characters, like, you know, they're things that I've seen. The stop sign character exists. The cardboard boss doesn't speak. Come on. We end up having a flaggy. Oh, that's just object cringe. We have like some of the other fella that was Glovey. That's a character from DIBS. But like in general, okay, yeah, there's still some interesting characters. Still, I think Waterfall's pretty interesting, especially as kind of the troller. They can like unleash water on people. Which is kind of interesting. There's Airy. I like Airy. Airy apparently like works within air, so they can place their like limbs wherever they want as long as it's within the air. So that's interesting. I like to see that. Then we end up having our host. So our intro is done using Gummy Bear. Is that we this intro is also very funny, because again it's so kind of half. It's so seriously unserious. The logo's so professional, but yet this is an intro that spends like skims over half of the cast in 0.1 seconds, because there's not enough time in the flipping song, and we didn't account for that. Like, it's kind of weird. And then we have the Algebraian be like, yes, I am Algebraian. My name is Cloudman. Yes, great name. It's I don't know. The show, I can't tell. I think it's like half ironic. And then the challenge. Isn't the challenge like challenge climb a pole? this is the first challenge from BFDIE, which I have heard is also literally the first challenge in one. So like that, yeah, there's just a lot of this going on, right? But like in general, I think that it's pretty good. You know, the fellas get up at the pole in various degrees of realism, like, you know, for some of them it makes sense, for some of them not really. However, yeah, it's like overall, I think it's trying to be a silly. It's trying to be silly. You know, like it's really trying to be unserious, despite being the main object show, right? Like that's kind of the thing. It's just whether like this clash works, right? Like, does it? That's kind of the debate that would happen, right? Because it's like there's this whole kind of goofy aesthetic to it. Like, have you heard how Cloudman speaks? Right, it's crazy, right? So you have this whole goofy aesthetic and tons of jokes, kind of at the expense of itself, but at the same time, you know, it's having some relatively some production valued stuff, you know, like a good logo, good thumbnails, good animation for sure. Animation's great. VAs are pretty solid. Like it's doing all that stuff, right? So then it just kind of does that clash work. I think that it definitely can. I think that within a 6-minute episode, especially in this challenge, it's not written well. I'm gonna be honest. I think this challenge isn't written well. Because it's like, hold on, like from Who's Up for Elim, we saw Glovey 0% of the time. Hat, we got disqualified. Okay, sure. Flaggy, we saw them in the middle of them climbing up. They didn't do anything. Cardboard, we didn't see at all. A water ball, we then never saw attempt the challenge. And stop sign, we never saw attempt the challenge. So out of the people who got out, we who are up for Elim, we have only seen 4 of them no, hold on. We saw like 3 of them not attempt the challenge, or like 4. I think didn't attempt the challenge. They only saw Flag and Hat try. So it's like, it's one of those situations where it's like, yeah, like you need to write the characters that you're putting for elimination. You need to write them, because otherwise we need to understand. We need to have a capability of voting. And to have a capability of voting, we need to understand characters, and to understand characters, they need to appear. They need to be on the show, right? That's why the type of individual challenge where like it's the ones who don't do X are up for Elim, because then if you don't do X, you're not gonna get screen time. However, you need screen time, right? So the screen time allocation I think is quite poor in the challenge portion. It does allocate everybody screen time at the beginning, so that's fine, but it doesn't allocate any during the challenge portion, and people like to judge based on challenge performance. So it's bad. It's bad on that front. I think absolutely. I must say, but yeah. Other than that, I think that it's solid. It has definitely at a technical level, I think it's quite a solid show that I enjoyed watching. I enjoyed watching it. I think that it can for sure work on its writing. It needs to give screen time to people, right? Who like more evenly. It needs to maybe sort out whether it's being more whether it's a bit more ironic or not, because I'm kind of confused about that still. And yeah, other than that, I think on a technical level, this show's got it. Of course, a one-man team, so episodes take a while. But like, in that's the case, we've got it. I think that there's still just some more like creative sectors that need a little bit of additional work. But especially animation, absolutely solid. Alright, I think that's all I can really say for DingDong right now. And next thing. Alright, next up, it's time to follow our train of thought, because we are taking a look at the latest episode of Train of Thought Coffee, which released. So, a couple months ago, Train of Thought released their third installment, which is titled Abandonment. It followed a completely different plotline to the first fellas, featuring a scythe and a perfume bottle, kind of debating over not getting brought home one or the other. We got to hear a story about them. And all that jazz. And in the previous episodes, we got to hear that somebody died to this ornament fella, and also there's a clever entity that seems to be over there. They might be back according to the thumbnail, because it's time for Train of Thought Coffee. Alright, that is coffee. So, another interesting little short. So, we end up having a little bit of, of development of what we got to see in the original Nightmares video, a kind of. We get to hear kind of a aftermath of it, because we end up seeing a coffee shop that's just, it's called Coffee, great name, love that. And we end up having a conversation between this ornament fella and a chili pepper, who are having a conversation about their schedules and stuff, and then ends up getting to the topic of nightmares. They don't get many nightmares anymore, because they have these weird superstitions that they just keep going, like always knocking on wood or whatever. And then we end up asking whoever the ornament person has nightmares, and well, they do nightmares where they're either somewhere or nowhere. Like where they're either in their room or nowhere, and they're always being watched by some sort of clover in weird thing. Apparently they don't remember it as dreams. They remember it as real things that happened. So that's kind of weird. We end up knowing that they don't have a therapist, because they don't have anything to function in their schedule. And that's it. That is the entirety of the short. We just get to hear this little tidbit of additional information. That's of course it's very useful. So we do get to know that the video Nightmares is is fully in a dream. Okay, because that was one of the questions, right? Because was the video nightmare is it that somebody's watching and it's it feels like a nightmare? No, so that is 100% within the dream. It seems, apparently. Of course it might not be a dream, and then where you're only thinking that it is, but for now let's presume that it's a dream. Okay. So, yeah, we're doing that. So we end up having a little bit of a development. We also get to see a little bit more about how this ornament person has been doing. But, in general, we don't get to find out much. This video, in the grand scheme of things, I'm watching this, how much have I discovered from watching this video? Not much, I've discovered that, okay, we're aware of it, right? Or wanted to share, it's probably something within a dream that could be important. It could mean something. However, we don't have the means to currently find out, right? We've gained one piece of a 100-piece puzzle, right? I feel that there's way more still to see. But yeah, overall, this is cool. It's animated very well. There's a lot of camera angles here. That I think I appreciate. I really like the top-down shot of the table. I think that one ends up very solid. The shot of the building is also quite solid. But Amanda Screw says great stores over in this town. Yeah, there's only the best of the best here. I mean, yes, I want to go there. But yeah, in general, I think that the series is pretty cool. I think that it's maybe suffering a little bit in the YouTube game. From being a little vague, right? It's one of those things where it's it's interesting, however, it's not exactly got the hook. It's not exactly got the hook. It's kind of it's intriguing, but it's not one of those more out of the more darker obvious series. It's not quite got that hook that makes you interested, right? Because it's okay, we've got the I'm interested, but I'm just saying general audience, right? Because views and stuff, right? You always want those, right? You always want people to watch what you make, right? So I feel it's not maybe got the hook, the absolute hook, right? Because in a series, you want to construct a character so that way you care about what happens to them. However, in these first 3 episodes, you get to hear a mysterious thing that has happened. It's okay, this is intriguing, but I don't know who this is, what they are, what they're doing. Right? A person has died and this ornament's sad about it, and Mary goes, okay, yeah, sure. But, we still haven't learned about this ornament person. I don't know who this is, why they're doing what they're doing. It's kind of one of those things. It's is so unbelievably open-ended to the point where following it is kind of impossible, right? You can make a theory, however, every theory is mostly baseless because it's just no. every theory is a headcanon, basically, because there's not enough information to really do much with it. We're slowly piecing the puzzle together. However, it's only going to be in about 3 videos that we're really going to get to understand, and then there's abandonment in the video that's about a completely different set of people. So it's like, it's so mysterious that I think it suffers a little bit from that. I don't mind it. I personally think it's interesting, right, to get these little additional tidbits of the story from time to time. However, I think when we're talking about the YouTube game, especially with how short these videos are, I think I see why they might not be getting that many views. Because in terms of animation, in terms of voice acting quality, especially in terms of writing, like audio especially, they're very well done. They're very well written. They're very it really does feel like spoken conversations. But like other than that, it's kind of, that's just that. Yeah. All right. Next thing. Alright, next up, super quickly, we're going to do the 100ly Object Show, created by BludIsAnGrape, which is also the creator of Balls, which is an object show that we watch, however, has then finished, so we don't exactly know what BludIsAnGrape has been up to. Well, but this is a 19-second video, so I guess it's pretty fast. Let's just watch it. Okay, so that is the 100ly Object Show 1. So, apparently, we have all of the 100 numbers competing in various number-related contests. So the first contest is a popularity contest, and 42, the meaning of life, and 69, are the 2 winners, while everybody else is up for elimination. Look, I mean, it's okay. Yes, those are 2 popular numbers. However, I feel like the number 1 is pretty popular. The number 2 is pretty popular. The number 4 in object shows is extremely popular. The number 7, that's Cristiano Ronaldo. the number 10, I mean, that is just every rating ever. 10 out of 10, all of that stuff. And why is the number 0 not included? There's a lot of these things. It's a little suspicious. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna need to see some factual, objective data into how these numbers won the popularity contest. I need a voting number. No, I'm joking. Okay. It's a joke object show, and therefore I'm gonna give it a joke review. But yeah, I mean, like, it's fine. There's really not much to say about it. It's numbers, and then we picked out a goofy contest that numbers could technically compete in, and then it's like, yeah. Why is the 6-7 red? I don't know, but whatever. 67, yay. That's all I can really say, dude. There's so little to say. It's actually hilarious. Oh, next thing, it might be an outro. Alright, and then the last thing that we're going to be taking a look at, because it's nighttime, and I allocated my time very poorly today. Oh my god, I am not in the loop right now. I need to lock back in. It's the coolest object show. So the coolest object show 13, released a couple of days ago, titled Past Questions. I was also specifically asked to look at it. I will. So, what was going on in the coolest object show? Let me try to remember here very quickly. So there was like the host who died, right, and got confiscated, and in the meantime we had a different fella hosting, right. And then we ended up having a point system now that also exists. Yeah, and in the meantime some other fellows were investigating. Spanton has been taking over souls. They have 1 million souls. They keep getting so many souls, and they're coming in and about to destroy everything. Okay, I roughly remember. But let me see if I can, I guess, get reminded in episode 13, which is titled Past Questions. Go. Alright, so that is episode 13 of the coolest object show. So we have the backstory episode, the non-competition episode, because there wasn't a competition. There is voting, but there's not a competition. But first we have the elimination, where the eliminated contestant ends up being the hand emoji fella, getting eliminated with 6 votes. To be 100% honest, I don't remember what they did, gonna be honest. So I think it's deserved, but I'm not 100% remembering. So we go back to August 1st, and then we get the backstory. So apparently there were 8 fellas, okay, 8 of these shape fellas, that were made out of one substance, one single liquid that was called Zincoruim, okay, and apparently Zincoruim it gives them a lot of powers, and the more Zincoruim you have, the more powerful you are, right? And everybody was doing great until one day somebody got jealous. Is it just me, or is this show harnessing its inner Teapot 20? What are we doing? Yeah, this is, yeah, I mean, it's hard to not draw a parallel to Algebraians here, you know, like because they're living in their own little world and there's like 10 of them, and they eventually discover a power and everybody's having fun with it until somebody gets jealous, does a murder, and then you're all fucked, right? I mean, that's what's happening pretty much. But yeah, somebody got jealous. Who is this star fella? This is Shenny, whatever. They have names. They apparently wants to steal Mark's power because they're jealous of it. And then they're trying to confiscate the power. However, a Mark proceeds to turn it into exclamation mark due to the anger, which straightens out, and then ends up getting so upset that they murder Shenny. Fucking murder, okay? And then everybody proceeds to dip away until eventually Mark turns back into normality, exclamation mark turns back into question mark, and proceeds to not remember what they did. Anyways, they proceed to dip away. The freaking triangle fella ends up being alone and is very excited about it. That's just like 6 for real. I'm telling you, bro. But yeah, those two. The pink ball and the blue ball ended up apparently forming a new world with the powers that they can have. So they named the sad world the fun world, and they named the fun world the sad world, because of course they did. I think we have to split up though. Why? That is, why do you need to split up? When was that a requirement? That is one of the why? No, I mean, it wasn't explained. Maybe there's a reason. Why did they need to split up? I don't know. What, are they escaping? I mean, I don't know. They're hardly escaping if the next thing the freaking ball circle does is just to immediately go, yo, I want to compete, and then proceed to stay in the same place. But, yeah, kind of crazy. Then we end up having question mark start to apparently want to one-up that fella's show. Why? What? You know what? Yes, this is another question, because it's like, okay, question mark wasn't, okay, so there's the thing. Shenny was the one that was jealous, and then proceeds to anger question mark, turning into exclamation mark, and then proceeds to, lash out, exclamation mark. So then now here I'm wondering, okay, so question mark is now the one that's for some reason jealous, and wants to one-up people and cause murder and bullshit, when it's like, okay, hold on, but I thought that wasn't you, right? I thought what was going on is that you got like possessed, right? Then like the exclamation mark was the evil side of you, but when you were question mark, you didn't remember and you didn't want to cause evil damage. See, because we were living in harmony. So I thought this was going to be a thing that misunderstood shenanigans. But no, you're just evil now. Why are you evil? What did you do? What happened? No, like what? Because you weren't even and debatably lashing out at Shenny's fine, because Shenny was like, I want to steal your power. I mean, it's like the playing circle didn't do shit. They were just chilling there, and now you're like, no, I need to murder you now. Why do you need to do that? What is the idea? What is the grand idea here? Why do you want to get more powerful? You were the most powerful. That's why Shenny was upset, because you're the one with the most power. Why do you want more? What are you trying to do? What? I'm not understanding the motive here. You were I thought you were the victim of some evil thing within yourself, but no, you're just evil. Okay, it's kind of weird. But yeah, they end up now recruiting Spanton, or Big Shot, I think is the name technically is. A pair of glasses ends up doing the last thing necessary, which is to simply free question mark from the dimension where they can't use their powers, just like the moon in Teapot 20. I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you, the Teapot 20 parallel, too uncanny. But they end up leaving, and now they can use their powers again. And then the second mission is to murder every contestant. Why? Again, I don't fucking know. I just got bored, okay? So yeah, some contestants starting to die with Glovey, or the handy emoji, whatever. No, Glovey, I'm thinking of the freaking other show. The hand fella, and they're getting thing yeeted by one of the pippets, and then we end up having the episode end with a mysterious voting, A, B, C, or D, with alarm clock and basketball, the blue circle and bean, the money and the bomb, and then the face and the other circle that I forgot what they were. And the eye, right? So those end up being the things to vote for. So now I'm wondering, what are we voting for? The first thing that pops to mind is a vote to save. That is what I'm thinking. Right, it props up as a vote to save, right? Because if you're thinking, okay, yes, then if we're having everybody, die and everything, right? What I'm presuming this is like, who do you want to stay alive? However, we're putting a little bit more of a jeopardy on that vote, where like you don't know if you're voting to like murder them or you're voting for them to stay alive, right? It's one of those. I believe it'd be more likely for them to like vote to stay alive. So like we're saving these people physically with like a canonical vote, in the sense where like this vote does, like, they in universe they don't know about this vote, and it's entirely just a vote to see who we are gonna save. That's what I would imagine this would be. It's the option that makes the most sense. It could be for something else completely, right? For something like, oh, who proceeds to activate the totem that we don't know yet, right? But like we don't know. However, it could be anything. However, it makes, I think, significantly the most sense for it to be that. All right. Okay. And yeah, and with that we end up having I love the freaking voice acting, and then a character by character, as if they're not just voiced like all by the same person. Yes, great credits, bro. Yeah, apparently the last amigo, right, the ball circle thing, you call it an amigo, ends up waking up at their head hurts, which means that they're alive, they're not dead, so that's nice. But yeah, then we'll have to wonder. But overall, audio fixed. Audio is fixed. Let's fucking go. That's what we need. Fixed audio. Let's go. Like, it's so much better. Like, okay, like, again, I'm sorry for nitpicking, but just have headphones. I know that a lot of people that make because it's kind of a different situation. Because a lot of people that make Objectsandloresforever, they use phones, and phones have like these speakers. They're usually teeny, right? And if they had headphones, it's earphones, right? And they're not very high quality, right? So it's like having headphones with proper sound, right, where like you can hear left ear, right ear, where you can hear like the specifics, right? And it doesn't just all get generalized. I can really feel it. So I guess in a way it's useful for me to point out these details. However, like yeah, I mean, it is a bit nitpicky when like a lot of the audience is on mobile or will watch it on a TV, where that stuff's significantly less notorious. But yeah, music, yeah, it's just so much better. Like, it's so, because like it's one of those things where it's like, I nearly forgot to mention it because it's just it flows by. It's one of those things where like it makes the entire episode just flow by better when the audio is solid. But yes, audio is officially good. Good audio has just been dropped into the scene. And yeah, I think that's all I can really say about the coolest object show. The lore is developing. I'm not 100% sure about the motives of why these people are doing what they're doing. Because like question mark wants revenge. What, for the fact that they murdered somebody that they can't even remember murdering? Like, I'm sorry, like it's kind of like, it's the weird, like, why? It's like, oh, you need to one up their show, but what, by making your own show? But like the other show where like you dipped immediately from I don't know. I don't exactly know. Motives still unclear. However, like the actual set of events, I am roughly understanding it. But yeah, everybody's about to die in the next episode. So that's gonna be very fun. And yeah, for now that's all. Let's do an outro for Rio now. Alright, and that will be all for today's episode of Object Catchup. Man, I don't know. I've been struggling lately to make these. I don't know why. Gonna be 100% for real. Like, I've done what should be one keep-up episode has become 3 with 2 break days in the middle. Like, it's been a problem. However, I have a plan. If I can follow it... I have a plan. Now I just need to follow it. It's kind of the days. I need to not be lazy, not do no bullshit. Okay, and if I don't do no bullshit, then I should be able to get to requests tomorrow, because I know that requests, they've been propped up, and I haven't been able to cover them for like a week now, and they were already about a week old, so now like 2 to 3 weeks old, the latest requests that we haven't done, and I still have them in mind, still have everything in mind, right? But yeah, I'm gonna try to start, getting to that stuff, because we really need to, like I really need to start getting to that stuff. Closing off the keep up now that there's less stuff to keep up with, although like fucking 4 videos released on the Saturday. I've been trying. Shit's complicated. The ecosystem has become so full of people. Like I filled to the brim with like creators now, where like in general there doesn't go by a day where somebody doesn't release an episode, so it's kind of ends up being complicated, especially when days like Saturdays are like, there's a big stack of like 5 episodes all the time, and it's like, well, I need to cover requests, I need to cover this, and then the requests ended up adding onto the pile, and then there's everything else, and there's a big show, and then random days, right? And then like I need to not do the thing, but look, we're getting there. But I know what I'm gonna do. I will try my absolute hardest. I will make no promises, because my promises lately have been bullshit. However, yeah, I will try my best. I promise. I'm really trying. It's not going great this January. I'm not gonna lie. This January has been kind of complicated in terms of catch up. However, I'm trying to get it done, and we covered a lot of the key points that we need to watch, and hopefully for tomorrow we can have a more proper video. Okay, thanks. All right. For the show that we watched, we're all caught up, except, we're not, but for like TUOS Horizon release an episode. But we're mostly caught up. See you next time. Goodbye.